Good morning. I'd like to call this TTC Board meeting to order. The clerk has confirmed that quorum is present, and I will begin with the land acknowledgement. Could everyone please take their seats? Yeah, thank you. So we acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Does anyone wish to declare a conflict of interest in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? No? Seeing none, we will move on. The next item is the approval of the meeting minutes of the meeting of July 17th. Can I please have a motion to approve the minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Matlow. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. As we go through the agenda today, those of you participating remotely will be required to submit requests to ask questions, to speak, and motions to the clerk. We will now commence the review of the order paper. Item 1, CEO's report, September 2025. I will hold this item in my name for a verbal update from the CEO. Item 2, approved minutes of the Advisory Committee on Accessible Transit General Monthly Meetings of June 26 and July 31st, 2025. I will hold this item in my name for a verbal presentation from ACAT Vice Chair Sophie Petrillo. Item 3, pilot free transit for grade 7 to 12 students field trips update. We have speakers on this item, so I will hold it in my name. Item 4, amendments to TTC policy 13.1.2, advertising on TTC property. Would hold? Okay. Item 5, 2025 accessibility plan status report. We have speakers on this item, so I will hold it in my name. Item 6, financial and major projects update for the period ended June 28th, 2025. Would anyone like to hold this item? Yes. Commissioner Jack down. Item 7, declaration of surplus property, 17 and 19 Dewhurst Boulevard and 1 and 3 Strathmore Boulevard. Would anyone like to hold this item? No? I'll move the item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 8, procurement authorization, supply of uniforms and work clothing. Would anyone like to hold this item? Yes. Okay. Item 9, appointment to TTC Pension Board of Directors. Would anyone like to hold this item? No. So I will move this item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 10, 2026 schedule of meetings. Would anyone like to hold this item? You'll hold? Okay. Item 11, feasibility study of delivering a centralized, on-demand, and accessible taxi cab dispatch service through the existing Wheel-Trans service by Chair Jamal Myers and seconded by Commissioner Diane Sachs. We have a speaker on this item, so I will hold it in my name. That concludes the review of the order paper. The first item of business is the CEO's report, and with that, I'll invite CEO Mandeep Lally to address the board.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone here today, along with those joining us virtually. I'd also like to extend a warm welcome to those joining us today's proceedings via the TTC's YouTube channel. Commissioners, as you're well aware, we have a great responsibility at TTC, and we move circa 2.5 million customers daily safely and reliably. We strive to do that with being great citizens of this great city. I would just like to take a moment to recognize some values that one of our streetcar operators duly demonstrated during the night of 23rd of August. On the evening of the 23rd of August, Sydney Campbell, a streetcar operator on the 512 Sinclair route, exemplified that spirit in a truly remarkable way. At circa 2300 near Oakwood Avenue, Sydney saw a young child walking along the road. The child was barefoot, disorientated. She saw a driver pause with the child, then move along, leaving the child alone. Sydney responded immediately. She brought the streetcar to a safe stop. She welcomed the child on board and then took the vehicle out of service. She stayed with the child until the police arrived. It became apparent the child was circa 10 years old, had complex needs, and had walked over 1 kilometre to that point. I had the pleasure to meet Sydney a few days later at Leslie Barnes before a shift. I wanted to hear her story in greater depth. Her compassion, quick thinking, dedication, I could go on. It's just a reflection of the true best of who we are. I'd also like to add just a snippet of our conversation that I had with Sydney at Leslie Barnes. It was in relation to the child when she brought the child onto the streetcar. At first, the child was sitting a few seats away from Sydney. But as they were communicating with each other, it slowly got closer and closer and closer. And when the police actually arrived, was actually cuddling up to Sydney. And Sydney was giving instructions to the child, the police are safe. And it was on Sydney's instructions that the parents arrived at the streetcar as opposed to the police taking the child, because the child was getting anxious and you could see it visibly on the face. So great demonstration of caringness and humanity. So I'm delighted Sydney Campbell is with us here today. I'd like to welcome her, us for sure, her appreciation, and take a photo. Yeah, Sydney Campbell. Always great to start off with a positive moment. Commissioners, earlier this month, the streetcar service resumed through the intersection of King and Church, following the completion of major work on the streetcar tracks. The new streetcar tracks intersections were precision-built, pre-configured, and staged at TTC's Hillcrest complex. This enabled the engineers to excavate and replace the old rail infrastructure efficiently, effectively, timely, with minimum disruption to residents and businesses. Despite the unexpected challenges with the water main replacement works, our streetcar infrastructure team delivered and renewed the tracks and overhead power on time. Great achievement. This is another powerful example of what's possible when the teams go above and beyond to keep our system in a good state of repair, restoring service swiftly following major works such as these. I'm pleased to welcome the team responsible for leading that, and welcome Peter Horvath, our head of streetcar infrastructure, and the team for a photo and show our appreciation accordingly. Thank you. Commissioners, now through to the CEO report. You'll have noticed that the format is somewhat been evolving, let's say. And I'll just go through some of the drivers before I actually go through the report. From the previous board review, I found it challenging in terms of how I could check the health check of the business from the report that was being communicated. So based upon that, I looked at all the KPIs and metrics. The two differ, distinctly differ. I wanted to simplify it. One, for transparency. Two, so you can see the contributors to the decisions that are taken. And three, what we're doing short-term, medium-term, and long-term in terms of addressing the KPIs. So that's the overall governance in terms of managing the KPIs and using the metrics to do that. It's still work in progress because as with any report, there's a whole structural change that needs to occur to support the metrics and the KPIs accordingly. The principle will follow a simple business principle in terms of by quarter. We'll do it by mode. So on this board, we'll go through subways, we'll go through stations, we'll capture safety, and ridership. Then Q2, which would be next month, we'll go through buses, then we'll go through wheel trans and streetcars, and then in Q4, in the fourth month, we'll go through people and finance and projects. And as we go through these iterations, you'll be able to benchmark in terms of how we're performing because the metrics will reflect the prior quarter in terms of the initiatives that we're doing to improve performance. So that, in essence, was a driver thought process in terms of how we came to where we are and how we're progressing going forward. So without further ado, I'll go through the subway performance. Previously, in terms of this was on-time performance at the terminals. However, on-time performance should be measured by several points throughout the system in order to get the true reflection of. So we have decided this is headway adherence in respect to the end of terminals. You'll see previously we would have had the overall value at the top of 89.3%. However, that doesn't really help us in terms of analyzing by line where we need to improve and what the metrics and KPIs are reflected. So based upon that, you can see on line 2 and 4, we're achieving what we need to do. On line 1, we've got some further improvements to do. And the format of the report, I'll go through all the aspects of it. However, it will be by exception going forward, exception being where we haven't met our KPI. In terms of line 1, we can see we're below the target of 90. And if you just follow the theme through in terms of the performance, the drivers of that performance, which are broken down in terms of subway minute delays and then the actions in terms of to rectify in the in-focus groups. So again, in terms of line 1, we've got some work to do there. We're looking at the opto delays in respect to which contribute to those delays. You can see the breakdown of those delays in terms of the total of operational delays was 49%. The actions there that have been listed is what Fort and the team are working through diligently in granular detail, and we'll be able to report back on in terms of how we're performing. In terms of the particular points in staff training to spot opto issues, that relates to when there is an anomaly, how we deal with the anomaly. And there's now more staff trained to do so than there were previously. Again, improving the KPI. In terms of service availability, again, 100%, so moving swiftly on. Schedule adherence. This is where we measure our planning versus the schedule. Again, previously, you would have seen the figure of 95.9% as a top-line figure. However, breaking it down with the methodology described earlier, you can again see where we need to improve in terms of line 1. Moving that through in terms of the delays that contributed to some of these performance, you'll see they've been broken down from external delays and internal delays, operational. That gives us the ability to focus on terms of where we needed additional assistance in terms of external to TTC, and then also what we need to drive internally. I referred back to the opto delays earlier. If we go on to the equipment delays, you can see how the team have now looked at the training lessons learned from the previous failures and brought them back into training to improve the technicians on the switches. Looking at the golden assets in terms of should they fail, we'll call it consequential failures thereafter. So really honing in terms of criticality of assets and the impact of potential failures when they do occur, ensuring they're not a systematic failure as opposed to a failure. And as we go through in terms of all lines, you'll have noticed that on the delays, on the unplanned delays, we haven't captured restricted speed zones per se, but going forward, they will be captured on there. So it'll be clear in terms of where they are, what we're doing, and how our performance is going on in terms of reducing those. And then external factors, we talk about how we're improving in terms of passengers. You can see passenger-related delays are contributing to 51% of the delays. And in terms of the actions we're taking, in terms of working with the community action plan, in terms of making sure that when we do have a delay, for example, if we have an unruly, is there anything we can do more smartly? We have a heat map of the system. We know where the potential has been previously. Can we forecast that out? Do we know it's within the AM peak or the PM peak when it's going to cause the maximum disruption? And look then to allocate resources accordingly in terms of not within the TTC and also special constables, Toronto crisis partnerships that we have, streets to home advisors where applicable, and the data is driving us to lead. Any questions on that before I move on to the next item?
Commissioner Sachs?
Yes, I didn't really understand the significance of N-terminal switches being golden.
Okay, so there's a methodology. I can't tell you the origin of the word golden. However, it's critical. So for N switches go out at a terminal, it's going to lock up the performance. Therefore, this criticality of it we class as a golden asset.
It's a top priority asset for attention.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Question here.
Commissioner Jagdale?
Mandeep, thanks for doing this, and I appreciate you being incredibly focused on the statistics and details here. Going to the unplanned delay minutes, just wanted to dig deeper into the staff-related delays. It represents the second highest delay across all the variables here. Could you maybe speak to that a bit and what variables we're trying to pull to reduce this, as I don't see anything here around it's in focus?
Okay, so I touched upon it earlier. Maybe I should give more granular detail. When I said we're doing, on the failures that we've encountered, We look at what the training has been provided to support those failures. We do the lessons learned from those failures and feed it back into the staff so they become more au fait with dealing with those failures. So it's that rigorous cycle of not just having a failure, fixing it and move on. It's having the failure. If first of all, we don't want the failure. Should a failure occur, we learn from it, but how do we embed that learning going forward? And we build that into our training programs. So that's a rigorous activity, which we just need the discipline to continue on going forward in a short manner. That is a exercise. Fort, I should have unduly highlighted that Fort has recently been taken on the position of Chief Operating Officer. So, Fort Manu. One cup.
So just to add further to what, and thank you, by the way. Just to add on to what Mandeep was saying, one of the key things that has fallen under the staff is the lake clearing work zones. So lake clearing work zones, all right? So that's determined, that's classified as a staff-related issue. So there's a myriad of different things we're doing to handle that. We're looking at earlier dispatching the trains. That's basically your maintenance window and folks finishing the work late. So additional training, additional earlier dispatching of trains or work trains, training of techs. We've also got a consultant coming in October to kind of give us a chance to take a look at what we can do to actually make the maintenance window a little bigger by finding some additional efficiencies. So there's a variety of different things we're looking at. Also having available mechanics very close to maybe problematic work cars. In case we do have a breakdown of any of our work cars, we'll be able to clear that delay a little bit sooner. So lake clearing work zones do fall under the staff.
Got it. Thank you both.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Quick question. Sure. I think we're going to get good little education here on metrics and KPIs and that. Could you explain, for my education, maybe others, what's the difference between a performance metric and a KPI? If I look at these numbers, they're nice metrics. How does that feed into, or how does that relate to a KPI?
Okay, good question. So that was one of my observations from reading all of the report last time. There seemed to be a plethora of metrics at KPIs, all intertwined. And there are two distinct differences between the two. A metric is exactly that. It's a static value of what's occurred. A KPI is a metric, but it's linked to your strategic objectives and gives you outcomes in order to make decisions.
I see, okay.
So I just want to clarify that, hence why we're looking at metrics in terms of, as opposed to KPIs, and using the metrics to support KPIs.
A page 2 might read something like, okay, these are the metrics, these are our goals, and this is how we're doing on the performance indicators. We're 98% successful, 2% successful, that kind of thing?
Well, yeah, the KPIs would reflect that.
Yeah, okay, thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah, okay. Next slide. I think you've gone.
Go back.
Okay, no, that's the one. There was some, and then I should have added, thank you for the feedback that everyone did provide in terms of when I did ask for input in terms of what you would like to see. There was a lot of feedback on the elevators and escalators, and we have digested that. Haven't been able to reflect it fully, but we will do going forward. Again, just taking the principle before going through the detail. We have the KPIs. I would go through it by exception. In this case, for the elevators, would be line 1 and line 4. Line 4? No, line 4, yes. And then we would break it down by station. So you would understand the KPI for the line and then also the station. And then more importantly, on the in-focus aspect of it, what particular actions we're doing for that station in terms of to bring it back in service. So we have a date, clarity, and we can communicate how we're progressing towards that. As we go through these elevator availability, you'll see that, again, for line 1 and line 4, we are behind target. But a proportion of that is down to construction. So the elevator is reliable, does work. However, it's taken out of service because of the construction that's going out. So we're classifying it as that availability, hence why the numbers are being impacted. You can see then if you flick through to the right-hand side in terms of elevators, there will be a circa 2% pickup between September in terms of the construction zones alleviating. So that's positive going forward. And you can see where that's has been impacted in respect to Shepherd, Shepherd and Young, and Sinclair Station. Line 4, there was circa 2% on corrective matters that was planned works in respect to the elevators. Moving down for escalator availability, combination of planned work, construction, and water damage in terms of the controllers led to the availability being low on those. But you can, on the other side, we can see how the pickup that will come through in terms of King Station, Spadina, and Museum and Yorkdale, all within the next 6 months and closer, would help bridge the number back up to the required KPI. So that's the logic that we're following there through. And I would just ask Ford to just give an update in respect to what we've done on the elevators, to just give a magnitude for the last 24 months in terms of volume and performance.
Yep, no problem. Thanks, Mandeep. So in terms of elevator overhauls or replacements, we didn't do any in 24 and 25, but the escalators, as you can see, based on the metrics, we have done a significant amount of work. So in 2024, in total, we had 7 escalators that we took out of service. 6 were for overhauls, 1 was a replacement. The ones that were overhauls, we did 2 at Queen, which is the 2E and the 3E. They were out of service for 21 weeks. They came back in service in April of 2024. At Queen, we also did the 4E. That was out for 13 weeks, brought that back in service in October of 2024. The Queen 6E, we took out for 13 weeks, and we brought that back in July of 2024. St. Clair, we took out the 9E. After 20 weeks of an overhaul, we returned it in April of 24. Eglinton West, we took out the 3E, and we did the overhaul, and we took that out for 20 weeks, and that was back in service August 24. In Yorkdale, we did a replacement. That was out for several years. We brought that back in September of 2024. The average age of each of these per overhaul was 46 years. The 2025 so far, we've had a good year. We've done 5 overhauls and 1 replacement. We've done the Dundas. That was out for 17 weeks. We brought that back in February. We took out the 3E and the 4E at St. Clair West. We took that out for 21 weeks, brought those back in July of 2025. Eglinton West, we took out the 1E and the 4E and overhauled them in respectively 18 weeks and 20 weeks each that were out. They came back in June of 2025. The King was replaced and done and brought back in service after 1 year and 9 months. That was done in July of 2025. And as mentioned and touched upon, we've also got the Eglinton West that's out for a overhaul. That's coming back November the 8th. Castle Frank is also out for an overhaul. We're taking that and bringing it back on October the 17th, and we've got the aforementioned Spadina one. So just to give everyone the context, there's a lot happening here, and we have a roster of about 320 escalators out there.
Thank you, Ford. Any questions before I move on?
Sorry, general questions or on just this?
I think it's just on this section.
Is there anything more we can do to communicate this effectively? There were more of these difficult, slow elevator projects in my ward than anywhere else in the city because I've got the most subway stations and the most old subway stations. And I have a very angry public as these things drag on, as Spadina drags on, as Museum drags on, the road closures, the elevator projects is taking so long. And I mean, I have received some information from staff, which I've circulated, but people just cannot believe that it takes 7 years to replace an elevator, especially because most of the time they don't see anybody working. So what else can we do to be out front with people about why it's taking so long and that we're doing everything possible to minimize the disruption. It's not just the people who need the elevators, it's all the people who are blocked by the road closures.
We can look at what we've done to date and see what the dates are that we have and see what the pinch points are. And we can definitely look at, see if we can improve on that.
Yes, please.
Yes. I'll take that one away. Thank you. Next slide, in terms of subways. Now, again, this is, if I follow my principle by exception, I wouldn't really comment upon this, but I'll just say a few words very, very quickly. In terms of how the cars are performing, it's based on the mean distance between failure. You can see where we are in respect to the rockets. It's phenomenal performance, quite frankly, in terms of the kilometers achieved, the 730 on the rolling 12-month average. That's nearly 1.2 million for July alone. Now, if you do that in comparison to, just say, New York, where I came from, on UR211s, the Kawasaki trains, you're getting circa just under 450,000. So the dedication, the team of doing the diligence, the work, the ethics in terms of going through and analyzing the maintenance and making sure it's fit for service is just shining through. Even more so on line 2, where the slightly older cars, again, the performance is stellar in respect to what the KPI is and what the actual performance is. And the rolling average over the 12-month period is way in excess that what I would have expected in New York for a similar age car. So that is really industry best practice. The only amber there is the Fairgate availability. That was due to a software item that hit us on the 9th of July. But it wasn't a systemic issue, it was just a one-off. There was no system-wide issues other than that one issue there. Performance in terms of Presto self-reload machines and the Presto Fare vending machines are again above KPI. And again, should they fall below that, we will be breaking it down by line going forward so we understand that a lot better and where we need to focus our attention. Moving on. In terms of safety, again, another positive period in period 7, where we saw positive numbers both for lost time injuries per million per prior year and also customer accident injuries. So some good positive news come in there. Again, this is based upon subway data, based upon shop data that we've been able to split through to make it specific for this theme. The data where we've got offences against customers and offences against employees is system-wide. We have not been able to split that in preparation for today, but we will do by mode going forward. So it'll be more granular and we'll be able to focus in where we need to apply more time and actions and resources to address those matters. But in terms of offences against customers, again, the 16% decrease from last month, 10% decrease compared to the same month last year, and overall improvement on a 3-year rolling average. So some positive news coming there. In terms of how, so which is always the question, we're looking at how we utilize our special constables, how we utilize our provisional offences officers, how we utilize our community safety ambassadors in line with our CSA. Again, strategically aligning them in terms of what the data has shown us from the map and accordingly mapping them out. You can see also there in the middle of the chart in terms of the satisfaction for personal safety, the jump from March 24 to May 25, particularly for the men is jumped by 2%, 11% in terms of for women, and a total increase from 57 to 64%. So some positive news there and being demonstrated by the de-escalation training we're doing, the visibility on the line that we're showing, which we'll be pushing more of going forward. Next slide. In terms of weekly customer boardings, you'll see there's been a 7% increase from previous year, which is positive. We see the customer satisfaction slightly below where we need to be, 10 points below where we need to be, but increase on month in respect to how we're improving. Again, going forward, this will be broken down by line so we can focus in where we need to put our attention to improve this further. The Net Promoter Score, NPS, is 12 points, again, a 1.7% a point increase from the previous month. So some sterling action there going there to improve that. The customer satisfaction on subways is an independent report from that the team utilized to gauge these, and also the Net Promoter Score is a pull-through of that. Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm just interested in, we're missing budget on our ridership. And I note that there's been quite a bit of activity around back-to-work mandates that should put us in better situation beginning in January based on the province, a bunch of banks, Rogers, among others. And I'm just wondering about two organizations closest to the TTC, one being the TTC itself, and the other being the City of Toronto, what the level is now, and if there is any contemplating changing what the status quo is.
So I'll refer to Shakira on that point in terms of the policy.
Hi, good morning, through the chair. So yes, we're aware and we're keeping a close eye on what is happening out there, but as a city agency, we do have to align with modern TO and what the city is doing. And my understanding right now is that we're holding our status quo, but we are keeping an eye on what's happening.
Thank you. Next slide. In terms of revenue rides, you can see there's a slight increase from prior year of 1%, but still below 3.1% below where we need to be in terms of the target set. In terms of wheel trans, again, stellar performance in terms of 1.4 increase from the previous month and a double-digit increase year on year. So some fabulous work going there by the wheel trans team. The overall performance in terms of subways, buses is highlighted there, gone through the subways aspect of it. Buses and streetcars will follow. Buses will follow on the next session and streetcars thereafter. In terms of the overall satisfaction, again, just highlighting again in terms of where we are, what we need to do in terms of going forward, in terms of the actions highlighted, and the teams do have more detailed plans to sit behind this to work that through by line. And you can see that the numbers there in respect to subway, buses and streetcars. And again, same for the Net Promoter Score thereafter. That concludes the swift update in terms of for subways, stations and safety.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions, Commissioner Matlow? Sure. Okay, 5 minutes.
It's a related or perhaps associated question. Not so much about our current subways, but our future LRT. Mandeep, in June, there was this big press conference with great fanfare between the province and the city and Metrolinx announcing the handover.
Sorry, when was that?
In June 17th.
I started in July.
I know that. Okay. I know that.
Just for clarity.
But I think that's so wise of you to say that for the record. And there's a big press conference announcing the handover of the Eglinton line to the TTC. And then subsequent to that press conference, I asked your predecessor about the suggestion, including the Premier's suggestion at the time, that it would be open by September. And his response to me was that would be, to paraphrase, it would be a stretch. We've now heard in recent days that that's not just a stretch, it's not happening. And I would appreciate it if you do have any information, if you could share it as far as have we in fact completed the handover? Are we comfortable with it yet? Has it tested successfully? And do we have an idea even of when it might be open?
Thank you for your question.
You're very welcome.
So I'll just clarify a few points in terms of the date you referred to in June is when the control center had visibility, not control. Control remains with Metrolinx. Contractually and liability sits with Metrolinx.
So, by the way, so it's not true that when they announced that the handover happened, it didn't happen then, did it?
We had visibility of the trains functioning on the lines. Control contractually and legally has always remained with Metrolinx and will remain so until they go through trial running and RSD and then revenue service.
Yes.
And when they do revenue service, that is in contractual terms, their substantial completion. At that point, it still remains Metrolinx accountability because they have the contract. CTS and CTM Mosaic, who work for or contractually work for Metrolinx. So they will be in charge of the maintenance of the track, the assets, and the infrastructure and the cars. TTC, as the operators, will operate it post that date. That date, as you're well aware, prior to my time, is based, and they will announce that date once it's safe, reliable, and they have the data to substantiate that, which has been, I think, made very clear by Metrolinx in terms of based on the Ottawa findings. So I couldn't answer that question on their behalf.
I appreciate that. Have they given you any? Well, have they given you any suggestion about what they really believe the day will be? And then based on our testing, to believe that it is safe and operable and ready to actually, move forward with and move toward revenue service, is it even a ballpark that we could guesstimate? Originally, originally it was 2020. But more recently, they said, and the Premier said it would be September. Your predecessor suggested within, 3 months. Are we seeing it open this year?
Again, that opening date would come down to Metrolinx to establish. But what I can say, that there has been improvement in respect to number of failures because we now have visibility of the performance at the control center. So the performance is improving. So that's positive.
Okay.
The failures are clearly reducing, and so that is, again, all moving in the right direction. But that data would drive Metrolinx's decision in terms of achieving their safety criteria based upon their contracts, based upon their signing off, and their independent safety expert who they've also employed to validate that sign-off.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Havik?
Mr.
5
Chair?
minutes. I'll get to you after Commissioner Bravo. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much. This is very interesting reformulation of the General Manager's report. My questions are in the spirit of wanting to really drive ridership and drive an increase in service. If I remember right, we had flat overall increases in ridership last year to this year, but it seems like the subway system is 7% increase from last year. So that, I'm guessing that means that the LRT and the buses are kind of down. But we don't have any data here on, and maybe I should have put it in that very inviting email that you asked us to respond to on what the key performance indicators that should be in any of these reports. Is there any data that you can give us in the next report on, call it number of vehicles on each of the lines broken up by key periods. So peak periods, off-peak, weekends, overnight, that kind of thing. Because that would give us a real indication, like how many train sets do we have? And I'll throw this all in so you can answer more, perhaps more holistically. If we have an increase of 7% rides last year to this year, are we seeing more trains?
So the increase in 7% that you're referring to is boardings.
Boardings on subways?
Yes.
Okay, so
And
that says, okay, we need more subways.
but we're still at circa 81% prior-COVID.
81%?
In terms of ridership. So we've still got the capacity.
I see, okay.
So in answer to your question, we have capacity. In answer to your previous question in terms of the asset and by route is what I hear from you. That was an action that we took and I discussed post the Strategic Planning Committee to look at the effectiveness of the route, look at the cost profile of routes versus the assets by mode. So that action is actually underway already by the Strategic Planning Committee.
Okay, so should we be asking for a slide that says, okay, during peak period, we have, I don't know, how many train sets, 25 train sets, 20 train sets on the line 1, X amount on line 2, and so on and so on. And then at some point, then you say, okay, we've reached capacity and we need to add service. Like I thought that there had been a council mandate to add service and I'm not sure how that money was or where that money was invested.
So Josh, in terms of your question, we can provide that information, but I just refer to Josh to give you the granular information on that.
Sure, thanks for the question, through the chair. So yeah, we can have the vehicle breakdown per mode, and I'm happy to have that. But in addition, what we can detail, I can tell you now, is that we have been adding service as directed by this board and because of the budget that was approved. So we've added service on weekends, on bus and on streetcar, and there will be additional service coming on, and now on subway that's going to be coming in the fall, and on streetcar in the fall on certain routes where we have the ability to add more vehicles, largely driven by not wanting to add vehicles into our routes where we're diverting or we have construction that we're dealing with. So service has been added to bus, streetcar, more coming on streetcar and subway in the fall. So we can measure that and convey that by the actual number of vehicles that someone will experience on a line, and we can provide that.
Like, I don't know, and I didn't catch it in that email that I had sent back, but it seems to me that that's frankly an important metric. You know, people are saying, we don't get the buses aren't coming fast enough, and that's really about headways and about number of vehicles on the route and so on. And it would seem to me, especially if we are investing, and, you know, I think Torontonians are patient, but I do think that they want to see, you know, rather than having to wait 7 minutes, if we can say, look, this year we got it down to 6 minutes, or we got it down to 5 minutes, and we used to have 20 on St. Clair, for example. Now we used to have 25. We're down now, or we're up now. Like, I think that those are kind of important metrics that at least I think I would find helpful, and I think frankly the public would find helpful, especially when we're asking City Council to throw money at us so that we can invest in service.
Okay, so again, I'll refer to that. We are looking at that in granular detail per route.
Right.
On the strategic,
Right.
at the Strategic Planning Committee. But we can put something in the next deck for buses to show you the path that we're taking.
Great. Okay, and relatedly, so I have a question about, you know,
It's your final question. You're over time already, so please keep it quick.
yes, sorry, I'll keep it short. If you could give us some indication on the spare board, the use of the spare board, I think that might be another key indicator. How many folks are sitting today at Subway? How many folks are sitting in the garages or wherever they assemble that aren't being put out to service? And do we need to look at the spare board and the use of personnel so that, you know, you want to keep it tight, I think, as tight as possible, but reasonable?
Okay. we
Any
can look at-
data on that
Yeah, I can look at that.
for next month?
I can look at that. I'll confirm.
Okay, okay, great. I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bravo?
Thank you, Chair. So I'm delighted to see this information brought forward in a comprehensible way, very transparently, and the intention to make sure that it's guiding future decisions. And some of the good news stories that we're telling here that I hope that we continue to lift up, particularly what jumps up at me is the increased sense of safety among women, a significant 11% increase. In terms of the questions about disruptions and some of the challenges that have been faced because of social and economic issues our city faces, in particular with regards to homelessness, we know that there's a forthcoming community safety action plan, and I just wanted to make sure that we are aligning with the City of Toronto's efforts. We have on the other side motion that I moved to have an all-of-city government response, a multi-divisional approach to homelessness, and wanted to make sure that that is beyond just the crisis response work, that there's been collaboration right now between TTC and the social development division. Just want to make sure that these will be integrated as they come forward.
In short answer, yes. It will be integrated.
So we don't need to. Great, fantastic. I know that you've answered that some of the questions with respect to service will be reported with respect to the data to the Strategic Planning Committee. I want to just point out that the number for streetcars, the data shows is that there are significant service concerns, certainly in my ward of Davenport, but overall throughout the system. So how do you take that data and from a very high level perspective and help you to drive decisions now? What are the next steps? Sort of even in terms of formulating a plan to improve the reliability of the streetcar network.
So are you referring to the bunching and gapping? I'm not sure.
The 57%, there was a, in terms of subway was number one, bus a little lower, but there was a 75 to 57% gap in terms of how people perceive the service or reporting on service. Is that inaccurate?
So that figure on the last page, that figure on the last page is referring to the on-time performance. Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's right. So my question is, seeing the significant gap with streetcar, what would be some of the good practices for taking this forward? How do you envision this data guiding future decisions?
Okay. So I'll just refer to some of the actions we're taking in terms of, there's a couple of key points. We're looking, as I said earlier, as part by route in terms of what the impact is. We're looking at it from the terminal perspective and the entire route. We're looking at metrics in respect to loading. Bunching and gapping is a key part of this, coupled with the adherence to schedule, not just at the terminals, but also going to see if we can apply it across every stop. So that will give us an even greater granular review in terms of what is preventing or impacting upon service. So when we come to given the update on streetcars, we'll be able to break the failures down from internal to external, and you'll see the impact of the external. It's also working with the city to see where we can get better access, where we get external impacts. So that data is being crunched through and we're trialing within the streetcar pilot, but we will be able to share that when we come to sharing the information on streetcars in more granular detail and address the question that you've just asked.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bravo. Commissioner Osborne?
Hi. I had a couple of what I thought might be warning signs from those KPIs that you published. The first is the mean distance between failure on the e-buses, and I know this is a subway week or month meeting, but maybe in the next, when you get to buses, just because this is the future of the fleet. Second is short turns. Third is the Wheel-Trans wait times, and I mentioned to Fenton in both of those cases, I feel like it's the measles because I thought we'd eradicated our problems on these two items. And the short turns are back up, and the Wheel-Trans wait times also have started to head into an unfortunate direction. And then finally, not from the KPIs, but mentioned in your report, the reduced speed zones are also back up. So those four things, I'm just wondering, you may want to hold off on the buses, but the e-buses, but if you have any comment on any of those.
So on the reduced speed zones, we're currently at 16. So we are working those through, and most of those 16 are on the open cuts. We do have, I have an expert that will be joining us shortly in terms of looking at our tracks in terms of a few things. So there's, and I've come across this before in my time, there's the fix we do based upon the problem we find. But in terms of how quickly can we analyze that failure before it becomes a failure? What's the precursors to that? There's technology out there that will enable us to do that. So how do we bring that on board? Step one. Step two, if we do like for like in terms of if it's a plate issue, for example, if it's a narrow gauge or a wide gauge, if we're just fixing the gauge with the same plate that we had before, are we really getting to the root cause of what caused it in the first place? Or are we going to end up at the same spot in X years times ahead? Again, we'll work through that. So that's the root cause analysis that we're looking to work through, and we'll be working through in order to get the long-term stability. But in the short term, we, as was highlighted earlier, we're bringing another consultant on to see how we expand our current window of an average of 90 minutes where we have, to see how we expand that to get more work done. So that would alleviate the short-term pain while we work through the longer-term solution in terms of how we eradicate it as well. There's a few other initiatives on that very topic as well that are being worked through in terms of restricted speed zones. In terms of short turns, Wheel-Trans wait times and e-bus MDBF, I'll take those notes on board and we'll encapsulate them in terms of our reviews going forward, so we have that information. And we can track that information transparently as well. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Commissioner Sachs, 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, first of all, thank you very much. I thought this was a much improved report. And instead of just a welter of pages and pages and pages of charts, to single out with the red, yellow, green, what's significant, some commentary on the side, what it means, and then a discussion about it. So very helpful, very much an improvement. And I think also it's really helpful to look in detail at different parts of the system so that we can focus on subways one time and streetcars the next. Having said that, I am going to follow my colleague, Councillor Bravo, and looking ahead at the streetcar report, given the 57% on-time performance of streetcar that you highlight here, when you come to talk about streetcars, one of the issues that we've talked about at the Audit and Risk Management Committee is the conflicts with traffic and parking. And the TTC, from where I sit, has not been very good at localizing where exactly the problems are. So on the Bathurst bus, for example, many months into the consultation about rapid TO, we finally managed to get data to show that we had a huge problem with the northbound Bathurst bus in the afternoons, and we didn't have a problem with the southbound bus or the rest of the hours. And that allowed us to focus in on, well, what is the problem, and to try to work on that. Will you be, instead of just giving us averages, will you be localizing where the bottlenecks are so that you can be more specific in asking the city for help?
In answer to your question, yes. And that is one of the key aspects of having the data point checks per station as opposed to every 5 or 6 stations. That will give us, it's more data to analyze, but it'll give us the cause. So once we know the cause, then we can start putting the remedy towards that. And then we can measure the remedy in terms of the impact of how successful we have or have not been. We can measure it in terms of passenger wait times index. You can measure it in terms of bunch and net gapping. You can measure it then against schedule adherence. So there's a variety of tools there. But the pinnacle in terms of answering your question, yes, but it'll be by stop, by stop, by stop. That's what we will be doing going forward for streetcars.
And how will that feed into better information for the public? We've heard lots of complaints for years and years that the city has lots of data, but that it doesn't help riders. How do you imagine turning all that data into information that assists riders to know how reliable is their bus or streetcar? Does it, how reliable is the schedule? If the schedule says the bus is going to be there at 12:13, when do they really need to leave the house? Can we improve that?
In answer to your question, that is the ultimate goal here in terms of, if you look at the whole methodology here in terms of number of routes that the supervisor manages in terms of, and then the operator actually delivers, and how that information cascades, and then how we use our wayfinding technology, which Josh is also looking to improve with this new strategy going forward, and team, and that would provide more timely information based upon what's actually happening. So again, we can touch upon that when we in more detail when we go through the streetcar.
Okay. All right. Then going back to your subway delay minutes, I appreciate the breakdown. It's interestingly different from what we've been told before. So on every previous time we've talked about subway delays, we've been told that 2/3 of the subway delays are due to humans, disorderly patrons, people intrusion, and so on. You've got this down to 51% or less than that is customers, noticeably less than that. So is human disruption reducing, or did you just categorize it differently?
So the trends are the long-term trends show that the human impact is significant.
Is
significant.
Yes.
And the actions we've taken in terms of looking for, we have to break them up first. First, understand the size of the problem. The size of the problem in terms of what's within our control, what's not within our control.
I know, but my point is that what we're being told is the size of the problem looks different in this report. Is it because you've changed the analysis, or are we actually having less disorderly patron disruption?
Okay, so I'm just trying to be more transparent in terms of what's causing the delays.
Me too.
So these are the delays as we've got them today, as we've got them for this period, and I can add in a trend analysis to give a better reflection, if that would help answer your question going forward.
It would. Do you know whether this is a trend? Are we seeing benefits from the fare enforcement and the tightening up? I mean, is the proportion of disorderly human delay decreasing, or is it the same?
Last question.
Maybe through the chair, yes, we are seeing a positive trend. We are seeing a positive trend. And so this is our most current data. And so that's what's reflected in this. And so some of our tactics that Mandeep spoke about in terms of the safety and security initiatives and the hardening of our fare gates, as you know, and a lot of other tactics we've employed are seeing a trend moving in the right direction. I think, though, what we still want to highlight is there's still work to do, as evidenced by this chart, and we will see more of that as we detail our safety plans and we come back and report on these numbers.
And Commissioner Sachs, if I can just add, July was unfortunately a really bad month for switch incidents. I can't really figure out why, but again, it's a snapshot in time. Trending will tell the actual story, but we had a really bad month with switch incidents in July, which will probably kind of bring the numbers more in alignment.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Nope. Are there any speakers on the item? Nope. Online? No. Okay. Seeing no further seeing no further questions and no speakers, can I please have a motion to receive the CEO's report? Commissioner Sachs, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item of business is item 2, approved minutes of the Advisory Committee on Accessible Transit General Monthly Meeting on June 26th and July 31st, 2025. I'd like to welcome ACAT Vice Chair Sophie Petrillo to present the minutes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Betty is on a very well-deserved vacation, so I am stepping in on her behalf. So I've prepared a summary for the June and July meetings, and then I'm open to any questions thereafter. So for our June meeting, we did have an update on the ongoing Wheel-Trans transformation. The head of Wheel-Trans, Cameron Henman, updated ACAT on a number of issues, including progress on the automatic vehicle location system, and also on the progress of equipping the accessible taxis that form part of the Wheel-Trans fleet with the Where is My Ride capability, which allows passengers to, oh, sorry, my camera came off. I apologize for that. Which allows passengers to see the location of their vehicle in real time from 10 minutes before the scheduled pickup until the vehicle has arrived. And for anybody who has ever used this feature, you can appreciate how imperative it is. This allows the drivers to find the passengers to locate their drivers, and it helps to avoid no-shows and the possibility of passengers getting stranded. We also were updated that subject to the TTC Board approval, Wheel-Trans will be proceeding with an electric vehicle sedan pilot project, which would see Wheel-Trans procure up to 10 sedan vehicles to operate as part of the Wheel-Trans fleet. And I believe that this will provide more flexibility in terms of matching vehicles with passenger needs. Further, ACAT members are frequently asked to participate in driver recertification trainings, and I believe that this is bus operators every 3 years have to engage in this recertification. And as the TTC moves towards a more accessible fleet, more and more passengers with disabilities will be using the conventional transit system, particularly buses. And through this work, through the driver recertification, we get a lot of invaluable feedback from operators on challenges that they face. One area that has been highlighted to ACAT members who participate in these recertifications is a somewhat lack of comfort in securing passengers in their mobility devices when requested. So TTC is looking to support operators by having mobility device workshops, specialized customer service training, and securement spot checks. Another area that ACAT asked for some additional feedback in the future was in improving the communication between conventional operators and passengers, particularly with passengers who have vision loss. And as you can appreciate, there's lots that the operators are dealing with in real time. Construction in the wintertime, bus stops that may be blocked. And so having that communication is vital in order to make sure that everybody gets to where they need to go in a safe way. The Design Review Subcommittee did not meet in June, but our other subcommittees were hard at work. For the Communications Subcommittee, the Design and Wayfinding Manager outlined the TTC's 10-year wayfinding strategy, which is focused on accessibility, digital tools, and universal design. And ACAT subcommittee members made suggestions on signage, compliance, and real-time information availability. The Wheel-Trans Operations Subcommittee did get further information on the electric sedan project that I just mentioned, as well as the new 406 community bus route. And finally, the subcommittee was also given an update on the IVR system upgrades. Finally, the Service Planning Committee discussed kind of how TTC manages the 9,000 stops that it has citywide, which they do a tremendous tremendous job in managing. But there were some concerns raised by subcommittee members about inconsistent stop markings, accessibility of bus shelters, and wayfinding tools, and the need for consistent standards for audio announcements was also discussed. Moving on to July, we had the privilege of having our new CEO, Mandeep Lally, attend, and hopefully we didn't scare him off and he will come back in the future. It's my understanding that he did get to do a ride along with on a Wheel-Trans bus, so got to see firsthand how the Wheel-Trans operates. This is a great thing that he did, and I think it really signifies to operators and passengers that TTC continues to prioritize accessible transit. The majority of our July meeting was really taken up with a briefing on the Family of Services Equity Analysis Project Plan. And as I'm sure all of you realize, with Wheel-Trans passengers, we generally have two options for service that are available to us. One is the more traditional door-to-door service, and the second one is this family of services that could combine aspects of Wheel-Trans and conventional service. And I believe that it was at the TTC Board meeting in December of last year where there was a question about whether family of services trips are disproportionately assigned to racialized and low-income neighborhoods. So at the request of the board, the Anti-Racism Policy Consultant Office launched this equity project analysis, and they came to brief ACAT about it. And I believe the assessment is ongoing and that we will receive further updates later in the year. With respect to our committee highlights, this communications subcommittee really focused on accessibility language and called for broader education efforts targeting families, caregivers, and students. Another big topic was the very successful Wheel-Trans 50th anniversary celebration that took place this last Saturday. I did have the privilege of attending, and I think it was a great way to mark the incredible work that the TTC does in providing accessible transit for the residents of the City of Toronto who have special needs. We got to take a look at the garage where all the buses are, got to hear from the head of Wheel-Trans and our new CEO, and I think it was a great day for all. The Design Review Subcommittee presented their Bus Design Innovation Program, which is focused on enhancing operator safety and accessibility through features like enclosed barriers, improved visibility, HVAC upgrades, and potential 3-door layouts. The Service Planning Subcommittee presented us with two of their strategic plans. First, the 2026 Annual Network Plan, which outlined its strategic priorities, such as service reliability and expanded coverage. And the second one was the 2025 Accessibility Plan Status Report. Updates included elevator installation, stop upgrades, and the upcoming launch of the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program, which I know has been discussed by the board in previous ACAT updates. Finally, the Wheel-Trans Subcommittee in July received further information about the Family of Services Equity Analysis Project that I just mentioned, and also the upcoming or impending Presto upgrade was also discussed. Just to close out, the application process deadline for new ACAT members closed in August, and interviews will be carried out later this month. So I'm sure that we're going to have a great crop of new people that will be participating in ACAT in the upcoming years. So subject to any questions that anyone might have, that is my summary.
Thank you, Sophie. Are there any questions? No, not online. Okay, any speakers? So none online, though. Thank you very much, Sophie. Seeing no further speakers, can I please have a motion to receive the ACAT minutes? Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item is pilot free transit for grade 7 to 12 student field trips updates, and we have speakers on this item, beginning with Yash Jain and Bailey Wu. from the University of Toronto Rocket Riders. Oh, awesome. So you guys are doing your deputation together, correct? So you're going to take 5 minutes?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Please go ahead.
So my name's Yash, and we're here on behalf of the University of Toronto Rocket Riders, which is the only St. George campus social club and advocacy group for student transit issues. And we're here this morning to speak on the pilot for free transit from grades 7 to 12 students, and creating further opportunities for the next generation of students, so that they can experience more interactive and engaged forms of learning, and maybe even feel inspired to take transit in the future.
We want to begin by expressing how excited we are for this pilot program.
Into the mic.
Oh, sorry. We want to begin by expressing how excited we are for this pilot program. This program has already had significant positive impacts despite the limited 5% eligible school participation. It's given schools opportunities they might not have ever had access to before by providing their students with unforgettable learning opportunities. Further into it, right? This is all despite the fact 2/3 of teachers were unaware of the program being implemented in pilot schools. In addition, over half of the school staff of participating schools found that the pilot program helped reduce financial constraints for organizing field trips, giving disadvantaged schools the ability to promote active learning, as well as build culture among young people to take public transit.
And, you know, it's really great that the TTC has taken this initiative, but I think we can take it a step further. And, you know, just like the TTC's current policy of free rides for anyone under 12, why not expand this to a wider group of students? This would promote more of a culture of riding public transportation. And, you know, I'm gonna pull up a study here. A study done in the US showed that elementary schoolers, on average, travel 3.3 kilometers to their schools. Middle schoolers travel 5.1 kilometers, and high schoolers travel around 6 kilometers to their schools. So why not reach students where they are?
This pilot project is vital for those who need the help and is a nice alternative for those who don't. It is also a critical point in time for many of those taking field trips. The older students will begin pursuing driver's licenses, so showing them that getting around Toronto without a car is fine will help us in terms of reducing gridlock on our streets. If this program reduces the number of people taking the Gardiner, then it should be considered a great success. Because as many of us know, as I'm sure many of us who have commuted through the Gardiner know, the Gardiner is famously a very empty highway. Let's continue to make transportation accessible to all of those who need it. We thank the chair and the council for their time.
Thank you very much, Yash and Bailey. Are there any questions? You guys very much for coming down. Next, we have August from TTC Riders. Not here? No, okay. I don't see August. So next we will go with, I see Debbie. Debbie King, TDSB trustee, Ward 7, Parkdale High Park, who is online. Debbie, are you ready to go?
I am ready. Good morning. Can I be heard well?
Yes, good morning. Go ahead. You have 5 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Chair Myers, and all the commissioners here today. I appreciate the opportunity to share some comments on this item. My name is Debbie King, as you heard, and I'm a resident of Ward 4 with one child enrolled in a Toronto secondary school, one of the schools that participated in the pilot, incidentally. I'm also the elected school board trustee for Parkdale High Park, but today I am here representing my own views as an individual, as trustee powers are currently vested with the Ministry of Education. I'm not sure that this is an item that wholly requires support for approval, but it never hurts to inject a sense of humanity and to center students in these considerations, and I appreciate hearing from the students who spoke before me. Interestingly enough, as a parent, I received an excursion approval form yesterday. My child is in grade 11 and their music class will be traveling by TTC to Roy Thompson Hall. And it's really great to see that field trips are already happening this early in the first month of the school year. Because their fare is covered, I don't have to worry about topping up my child's Presto card for the added trips. I know that $2.35, the Presto Youth Fare, might seem nominal, but I can tell you from lived experience that when you are a parent or a family going through a season of scarcity, every extra cost compounds that stress, and it is certainly helpful when the school can cover these costs fully. Unfortunately, many of our schools are also feeling the stress on their budgets. Principals are increasingly subsidizing daily lunches, regular bus fares, and field trips for families that are having economic challenges. They're also increasingly turning to school council fundraising to sustain those allowances throughout the year. It was explained to me by a principal, and it's reflected in the report as well, that the more that schools are providing subsidies, the fewer excursions they may be able to offer. And my concern is that this exacerbates the inequities as students at schools with higher means may get multiple off-site educational opportunities to great places like the ROM or AGO in our city. And that's compared with students that have fewer resources, lesser opportunities outside of school. I've seen this play out in South Parkdale, which is one of the neighborhood improvement areas identified by the city in my ward. But I'm asking as you move forward to keep in mind that particularly in the TDSB, students often attend schools that are outside of their catchment, especially with admission policies related to French immersion and student interest programs. So what this means is that there can be very high need, even in a school community that is perceived to be more affluent. So I'm encouraging staff as you move forward to work very closely with the school boards to understand the distribution of need based on where students reside, not just where they attend school. Quickly, a few other thoughts. Group size. Average class sizes in grades 7 and 8 exceed 21 students. So if this is the group size that's restricted to subway only, I can understand why that would continue to present a barrier to participation. In thinking about service parameters, if only certain days and routes are being leveraged, I'm wondering if staff are identifying and considering corresponding excursion destinations that can help support the awareness and the uptake. So just as an example, the ROM and many of the Toronto history museums are closed on Mondays. Mondays were one of the 2 days that were identified within the service parameters. And lastly, just thinking about evaluation, with the semester model, in secondary school, I wonder if this might allow for some preliminary evaluation and amendment to service parameters prior to the end of the 25-26 school year. So a couple of thoughts for you to consider, but I do thank you for all of the work on this pilot. I'm very grateful for the benefits that it's already brought to students and to schools already. And I sincerely hope that the Toronto Transit Commission, together with the city, will be able to work increasingly in cohort and in sync with our school boards to support student success. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie, right on time. Does anybody have any questions for Debbie? Seeing none, thank you very much. I will make one more call. Is August from TTC Riders here? No? Okay. So we will go into committee questions. First, I have Commissioner Osborne, then Commissioner Jagdale.
I'm speaking on the matter, not questions, thanks.
Commissioner Jagdale, do you have questions or speaking?
I have questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Myers. Pilots are great. They help us either justify whether an initiative should happen or whether it shouldn't, so I'm glad we did the pilots. And I just have a couple of questions for staff on this. As at right now, in your expert opinion, does the data currently justify continuing this program?
Through the chair, we've recommended continuing the program. We admit that the uptake has been modest. I think the reason we're suggesting where we continue it is because the program had some kinks to work through at the beginning in terms of administering and setting it up. So we don't feel like we have a full school year under our belt to know whether it is worth continuing with.
So we're continuing this program because we don't have enough data to justify whether or not it's a good or bad idea.
Through the chair, data is incomplete. There was a lot more startup to this than we anticipated in terms of back and forth with the school boards to get it up and running. And so we don't have the full school year, and so not enough data.
Based on, okay, how long was the pilot?
The pilot was, started technically at the beginning of last school year until June, but really kind of ramped up in the second semester of the school year.
Got it. Does the program as it stands align with our strategic plan?
Through the chair, it aligns with our strategic plan and our corporate priorities in terms of trying to grow ridership. At the same time, we recognize that the strategic planning committee quite clearly told us to kind of turn over every stone and reconsider every kind of policy and initiative. And so this would not be exempt from that exploration in what we come back to that committee with and what we come back to budget with.
And this would be a stone that's not unturned because it's a liability to us in terms of we're spending money and not really generating any revenue?
Through the chair, I would say it's the opposite. This stone would be overturned if we keep going down the road with this analogy. And so this is something we would look at through that process, regardless with the direction that we receive from the board, regardless of what happens today.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Malik?
Thank you. This is a great program, and I'm glad to see it extended for another year. One issue that I think has been raised by other commissioners is, I guess, a low level of knowledge about the program. And I know this is a frequent concern, experience with pilot programs. And while I see there is a recommendation, I see that there are recommendations, I wanted to hear a little bit more about how we're taking this feedback more generally at the TTC about how we communicate about pilot programs, this one included.
Through the chair, one of our learnings from the first year of the pilot was that with the hundreds of schools that in theory can participate, that we do need to do with our school board partners a better job of promoting this. One of the kind of the harsh realities, though, is the direction we're given by the board was to do this without expending additional dollars and to do it within budget, and that would imply both around operating dollars and any kind of dollars we might spend from a marketing perspective. So really we're working with our school partners on this one. But at the same time, we recognize that there's an opportunity to use the voice and platform of many of you around this table. And so we've talked with the chair and the initial mover of this motion about doing a media event and looking at other tools and utilizing our social media, which we know has a broad and growing reach, and to look at other ways we can work with the school board to promote this. So with everything we do, obviously we want to promote it and make sure that people know about it. There's always kind of the budget constraints within which we operate, but on this one in particular, if endorsed by the board, we would look to do more work to make sure that teachers and school boards knew about it.
Okay, I guess the challenges that that some of us around the table who do engage our schools didn't have the information either, right? And so I did reach out to the chair seeing this item on the agenda. We do start of the year communication with all of our schools, and this would be the perfect thing to include in that. So I guess kind of looking in a more immediate way, can you speak to some specific measures that might be taken? A media event sounds like a good direction to go in, but some of it's just some, foundational communications about the program as well.
So through the chair, we have all those ready and we're available to share them, but we can't share them and put them out to the school board until we have approval from this board that we're going to continue with this program. So we have those ready to go, but until we get that approval, it's difficult for us to push the word out. And so once with having that approval today, we have those materials ready to share with all of you and with the school boards, and they would be getting those out there.
Is that all your questions? Yep. Does anyone else have questions on this?
I have a quick question, Chair.
Commissioner Bravo?
Thank you. I note in the report that a significant representation from neighborhood improvement areas, with half of the field trips originating from these areas. Can you comment a little bit on, from your perspective, if there's any value in that? I can certainly say that from a social development and social economic development perspective, it's a very powerful piece of information. I just was hoping to see if you had anything else to add.
Thank you for the question through the chair. So we had, for this pilot, we had a few different evaluation criteria, and one was around improving access to transit. And one of the ways we're going to measure that is looking at how many schools from neighborhood improvement areas took advantage of the program. So that was actually, I would say, one of the greatest successes of this program to date, or the pilot, where we did see quite a bit of uptake from those schools and schools in those neighborhoods who took advantage of the program. One of the things we of note we also see is that there are a few schools who really took advantage, and so I think there's an opportunity to kind of connect with them to see how it works so successfully in those two instances, to kind of learn from that so that they can share with their colleagues at their boards, but also so that we can pick up some of those lessons learned, but significant uptake in neighborhood improvement areas.
So in terms of the social development, community economic development dimensions, those are not necessarily exclusively the purview of TTC, but wondering if there is a possibility to have City of Toronto staff or an agency like United Way, which has a network and is focused on particularly these neighborhoods that have the most disadvantage and structural exclusion, that there could be a bit of an externalization of the promotion, because offering the service itself is one piece, but actually taking responsibility for ensuring that it lands where it's most needed is kind of a concurrent piece. And I refer particularly to what Trustee Debbie King was saying about how scoping this specifically to lift up that particular outcome that we want could be done more deeply in partnership. Is that thinking already happening?
Through the chair, some has happened, but we're happy to connect further with our city colleagues to use those kind of channels and platforms, which we know they have well established especially in the neighborhood improvement areas, to make sure that they're promoting and kind of getting the word out there.
Great, thank you. As a chair of the Economic Community Development Committee, I'd like to offer my help offline.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Bravo. Any other questions? Commissioner Sachs?
Yes, thank you very much. First of all, one of the methodological issues we've had all along is this question as to what does it actually cost the TTC to have a school group on a Monday or Friday bus? So am I correct in understanding the TTC has not added any service in order to accommodate any of these trips?
Through the chair, that's correct.
So we've had no out-of-pocket costs to accommodate these folks?
Through the chair, the only cost that would be theoretically out of pocket, and we're not going to talk about foregone in theory revenue, would be our staff time and cost, which has been significant on this, but not in terms of like operating costs, because it's existing capacity.
Right. And in one of the ways that this kind of program has worked so well in other cities is by giving an opportunity to train kids in how to use the system and why they need to pay. What has been the reaction to those programs?
Through the chair, we've had actually really good uptake on the participants through those programs. So one of the criteria is that we've created, call it a curriculum, that the teacher has to deliver to the students who will then be taking the field trip. And so we've got 100% compliance with that. And we've got very positive feedback from our surveys we've done of teachers and school boards around that practice.
Right, and that addresses a really serious problem we have of high school students not thinking that they need to pay, right?
Through the chair, high school students are a difficult group for us in terms of fare compliance. We've also had issues, and we've done other outreach efforts around this, around, I would just say, civility on the system, where we have some issues with high school age students that we continue to work on, and this is partly to address that too. Through the chair, we've got a good response so far.
Now, in terms of this question of foregone revenue, do you have any evidence that these trips would have happened regardless if we hadn't had the pilot?
Through the chair, we do have some, because we've done surveys of teachers and school boards, and some have indicated they still would have. Others have suggested that's not the case. So the way we would use it is obviously like we model anything around this. We have a modeling around the revenue. In this case, we actually used survey data to teachers, and we got feedback from some saying this field trip would not have happened, and some said it would have still.
So it's fair to say new trips are taking the system that would not otherwise have done so.
Through the chair, that's fair to say.
And again, really glad to hear a significant update from schools in the poorest areas of the city.
Through the chair, I believe it's 50% of the school trips taken were from neighborhood improvement areas.
What do you think are the opportunities to increase awareness and uptake this year?
Through the chair, so we've, obviously we need approval today, but if we were to receive that, we have plans in place to work more collaboratively with the school boards. One of the challenges is that these school boards are large, especially the Toronto Public and the Toronto Catholic. The way they cascade information out to their schools is not consistent, and not everyone gets it. So some of the feedback we've heard from teachers, asking them specifically, is they're saying they did not know about it. So they're not hearing it about from their school board. So in my response to the Deputy Mayor's questions, we kind of have a plan to use all of you to help put that out there more effectively, use our social media channels, so that not just the school boards know, but the teachers also do too.
Right. And last year we were asked to put aside hundreds of thousands of dollars to cover the alleged lost fare revenue, which didn't materialize and never was going to be an out-of-pocket cost anyway. What happened to that money?
Through the chair, that money would go into funding other priorities of the TTC.
So you don't know what happened to it?
Well, I can't give you like where it exactly went, no.
All right. And what do you think is a realistic target for number of kids, number of trips for this year?
Through the chair, so as I said, the uptake was modest, and so we certainly would want to, at the very least, and like I would say double and triple that at a bare minimum. It won't take us a lot to do that because these numbers were low. So we don't have a set target for like number of rides or number of field trips. We're happy to include that in our analysis so that we can assess as the pilot continues whether we met that or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sachs. Are there any other questions on this? Speakers, I have Commissioner Osborne, and then I have Commissioner Sachs.
Thank you. Mandeep, you might be surprised at the comments I'm about to make, but nobody else will be, because you're new. I find this whole thing, while I have no issue with what we're doing, is so extraordinarily tactical, in other words, operational. This is the fourth board meeting that this has been discussed, and we're now slated for a fifth because the pilot was inconclusive. And I just feel like we've hived off this one element of our fare policy, which the ink on which was only barely dry when this was raised. We're looking at it in isolation, not considering what might we might do with those resources, both human and financial. And so, I looked at the numbers. We have 40 million rides, a ridership of 40 million a month. And we're talking about, let's even say just 3 months, being generous with the data. We're talking about 1,800 students who complied with the parameters of the program against a ridership of 120 million. This is 0.000, et cetera, of the ridership. And I'm not sure if this is the best way for us to be using scarce resources in Josh's department and financial resources, because some would have been required to produce the materials and all of the things that were required to set this program up. So we're not spending resources on things like fare capping that affect millions of people, and we are spending an inordinate amount of time and resources on this little tiny thing, both at the level of the board as well as staff. So I'm just questioning priorities here, and if there might be some benefit to looking at this in the context of some of the other items that we have on our significant to-do list. The good news is that we have, according to the report, we have foregone $25,000 in revenue instead of the 500. The bad news is that suggests to me that this program fell wildly short of expectations. And even if we do, as Josh has just suggested, double or triple this, these are still minuscule numbers. And I do agree, I have no issue with helping out people, but school trips is not our mandate. And there are surely more effective ways for, in the fare evasion thing. Again, this is just a program in isolation. So yes, I would say that in the way we describe this, if we were using baseball terms, is a very long run for a short slide. So those are my opinions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Commissioner Sachs?
Yes, well, we'll continue to disagree about this. I will note that the TTC didn't forego anything like 25,000 or 500,000 in revenue. It was, according to this, 6,000 eligible field trips. At least 2/3 of those wouldn't have happened without the program. No actual operating costs incurred for it. So the costs keep being exaggerated. What we have here is a very small beginning at something which gives us a possibility of reaching high school students in an important way, using spare capacity that we have. Because we still have a city where Mondays and Fridays, hopefully this will improve, but Mondays and Fridays we have an enormous spare capacity. So I'm glad to see the staff saying, okay, let's try another year and see if we can let more people know about it. What I want to see is that when the report comes back, it's honest with us about loss. We haven't had that. This pretense that all of these trips would have happened anyway and the TTC would have got full revenue isn't true. We don't have any evidence to support it. The survey report, as the report itself says, 2/3 of them, that this enabled an educational outcome that would not have occurred otherwise. So even of the $6,000, at least 4,000 of that we would never have got. So I'd like to see an honest answer. What is this actually costing us when we decide? I agree.
Do you have a motion? Sorry.
Yeah, I do have, I'm sorry. Thank you. Yeah, I have a motion. I apologize for that. I have a motion, which will circulate everybody ahead of time that when they report that, they should tell us the truth about what it costs. Appreciate that. But also just in response to Commissioner Osborne's point about why are we discussing this separately? I agree. I don't think this has to be separate. I started it because it was something the TTC wasn't doing and wasn't taking advantage of the Get on the Bus program and its success across the country, and we should be. So we've got to start on it now. I would certainly be open to, when you bring this back, bring it back in a larger context. What are you doing to grow ridership in these particularly lower income areas? What are you doing to grow understanding by high school students of how they should conduct themselves on the system, how they do use the system, why they should pay. This is a piece of a larger vision about improving lifelong use of the TTC, so talk to us about it in that way. And I agree that at this point, we could probably leave it primarily to staff. It doesn't meet the materiality level that requires so much staff board attention. I'm fine with that, as long as the staff can take it away and keep building it. So if it doesn't need our continued attention, Mandeep, I'm fine with that. Thank you. But first, I have my motion.
Thank you. Does anybody have
Chair, on a point of personal,
sorry?
it's actually a point of personal privilege. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're breaking up a bit, but yes, keep going.
Okay. Apologies. I'll stop my video momentarily, and I apologize. I'm out of the city on city business. I would ask Councillor Sachs to reconsider characterizing this as not telling the truth. I don't think that's fair to staff, and that I would also suggest that I can support the motion that we reframe this, because it's implying that there's been dishonesty here.
If there was any suggestion of dishonesty, I withdraw it. No, I'm a big fan of our staff, but I think that talking about foregone revenue or 500,000 or 25,000, it's not true based on the facts we've been provided, and I'm asking that we get a report that tells us what is it actually costing, and not a notional calculation which isn't based on the facts we have. That's what I'm requesting.
Thank you, Commissioner Sachs.
I think that.
Do you want to turn your camera off, Commissioner Bravo? Because we can't. You're breaking up.
Thanks. It's okay. I've said what I had to say.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So any other speakers? No? So the first item is on the motion put forward by Commissioner Sachs. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. All those opposed? 1. Thank you. So motion adopted. Item is amended. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All those opposed? 1, 2, 1. Okay, motion's passed. Item's adopted. Thank you. We will now go on to item 4, amendments to TTC policy 13.1.2, advertising on TTC property. And we will begin with questions. Vice Chair Mahavik, you held the item.
Yes, thank you. Interesting report. I'm wondering, with the new policy that you're proposing here, would the advertisements from that, I guess, pro-petrochemical industry group, would it have made the cut? And how would it have been caught or not caught?
Through the chair, sorry, could you just repeat that question?
You're proposing amendments to the policy on appropriate advertising. If the policy is changed, would the advertisements that had sparked this controversy in the first place, would those ads have made the cut?
Through the chair, the policy changes really are reinforcing our existing practices and including more of the provisions that we refer to and rely on in the Competition Act embedded into our policy. So we believe that this is a little more, it reinforces some of the principles and it's clearer, but the process we think was sound before and would continue to be now. And so the same ads that may have come forward would be held to the same rigor that they would be before.
So would it have made the cut? Because I think it appears that that's what drove it, was fossil fuel advertisements that were deemed to be inappropriate for the TTC.
So in fairness, Commissioner, we did not go back and look at the past ads. We looked at the policy and we looked at the relative or the
related court decisions about how that's been interpreted, and to make sure that we have a policy that allows us to make decisions that would be compliant with the previous court decisions. And so the Competition Act was recently changed. We took effectively the Competition Act requirements from a greenwashing perspective and added it to the policy. It doesn't mean that you have banned fossil fuel ads. It means that there's an onus on those ads to prove that the statements they're making in the ads are true. Okay. The other addition that's been added, which time helped us, is that the Competition Bureau also came up with guidelines on how to interpret that and provide more interpretive language for how they would interpret compliance with the Competition Act.
Okay,
so those guidelines are referenced now to bring it into compliance. But we would, to be honest, we'd have to take each ad and look at it to determine whether you meet the specific requirements and whether the advertiser, so what was missing is, in this new model, you'd have to go back to the advertiser to provide us with the proof that the statement is correct.
Okay.
And or the methodology they
Got
used.
it. Relatedly, who makes the call that it's an inappropriate ad? I know Pattison, is it Pattison? They've got the big contract, right?
Through the chair, the TTC does.
And who in the TTC? Is it you? Is it a group of staff? Used to be a group of commissioners, actually, made the final call.
Yeah, so it's not a group of, through the chair, it's not a group of commissioners, it's through staff. And so that would be my team in consultation with our chief legal officer and in some cases with the CEO. And then that's when we would push back and we would have the process by which they would then have to defend any claims made in their advertising. What we're trying to do is not make the TTC the arbiter of scientific claims. We want to push this onto the advertiser to be doing that work to back their claims.
But at the end of the day, where does the buck stops with staff, and you're saying it is your division that does that work?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Commissioner Osborne?
I'm looking at the definition of advocacy, and I'm wondering if we are exposed to claims if, for example, a government wanted to tout the benefits of a given program that was, let's say, political in nature, but could be like, let's say, the carbon rebate. That is advocacy in some dressed up as education. If I say that I'm Campbell's and my soup is healthy and some nutritionist takes issue with that claim, or vaccines, a pro or anti-vaccine position. Like, I'm just wondering where we are exposed here with this increased ownership of these standards that appear to come from this this section of the policy.
So to be clear, I think those standards have always existed because the policy has always said that you will comply with applicable laws, or any advertiser has. So when the Competition Act changed, those requirements applied to the TTC. All we've tried to do is take those provisions that were in the Competition Act and put them in the policy to make it upfront, so an advertiser sees them upfront instead of having to scramble to see that. So in some of those cases, I do think these provisions would apply. I think in your vaccine case, maybe not. In some of the others about the benefits of the carbon rebate, they may. And so you would run it through an analysis. And so in all of these, you'd look at whether it complies with the provisions from, have you proven the statements, are the statements true? And if they can prove the statements are true, that ad most likely would be approved. It just puts the onus on the advertiser to show that what they are saying is correct.
Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Any other questions? No? Speakers on the item? No? Okay, Vice Chair will move. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. The next item is 2025 Accessibility Plan Status Report, and we have speakers on this item, beginning with Brad Evoy. Not online? No? Okay, so Brad is not here. Next, we have Jennifer Conroy. She's on, I see her name. Jennifer, are you with us? Okay. Next, we have, oh, there she is. Jennifer, I don't, if you're on mute, yes.
Good morning, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to speak to you about the AI and the IVR on Wheel-Trans. While continuing to improve and being implemented into everyday use, artificial intelligence continues to be a double-edged sword. This is especially true if you happen to identify as a person with a disability. We often struggle to be understood by our virtual assistants on the smartphone and other smart devices. Some of us have severe speech disabilities, meaning that we struggle with fluent speech and even just speaking clearly enough to be understood. This is why our personal devices can support voice imprints. AI can often misinterpret or sometimes mishear what is being said. Most people here have heard me speak before, and I think would agree that I have a pretty clear voice, yet I sometimes struggle with talking to AI and have been known to set off my partner's smart speaker in the next room. Even when I use Gemini to assist in research, there is a small disclaimer at the bottom, encouraging me to verify results in case they are incorrect. There should be a fail-safe mechanism in place if the AI system doesn't get the correct information on the IVR. Without a fail-safe, there is a very real possibility that customers may end up at the incorrect location. While researching this to address you today, I noticed that only Android users will be able to use this properly. I personally use an iPhone, an iPad, and frequently use these devices to book my Wheel-Trans rides. If I don't happen to use an Android phone to book my ride, what happens then? Those of us who don't have equipment compatible with this new system may be at a disadvantage. I am also interested to know if this technology will be rolled out on the Wheel-Trans app at any point. If so, the need for AI to work properly is even greater. I am a frequent Wheel-Trans customer, using it to travel to my volunteer job, so it's vital that I'm able to book a ride without technical difficulty. AI is a wonderful tool, but I don't think Wheel-Trans users would benefit from it in this instance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your deputation. Does anyone have any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, thank you very much, Jennifer. And I see Brad Evoy there. Brad, are you with us? If so, you are on mute. There you are. Brad, do you want to go ahead?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for allowing me the time to speak today. My name is Brad Evoy. I am the Executive Director with Disability Justice Network of Ontario. I'm also a resident at in the Toronto St. Paul's ward. And so I just wanted to give a few, further thoughts on your broader accessibility plan and speak to some broader concerns that, we have both in terms of local issues on the TTC and their broader impacts across the province. Ultimately, when we see the reporting that you've put forward, we really want to emphasize and echo comments that have been made by members of our community, in Toronto, particularly around the family of services model. Ultimately, we believe that the family of services model needs to be abandoned. It is very clear that the disabled communities across Toronto believe that this model is fundamentally inaccessible, fundamentally leading towards disjunctures in service, and in its slow, hobbled implementation is not truly a disability-led model. Further to that point, we believe that the TTC's use of a family of services model influences policy around Ontario. It is very clear that as the family of services model continues in the TTC's jurisdiction, that other transit authorities are also attempting to push for these models. In our view, their attempts to do so have been as haphazard as the implementation of family of services has been. And as such, we would really hope that the TTC could, show leadership and move to a model that is responsive, led by disabled people out Toronto, and set a standard that will have a positive influence across Ontario in terms of developing models of service. In terms of other areas of reporting, we'd also want to focus a little bit on wayfinding. Wayfinding is mentioned in the report and in terms of areas of expense that have moved forward. And, it's always positive to see the adjustments that are being made. But we want to be clear that the wayfinding that is existent in the TTC is not going far enough. It's very clear that, from the experiences that we hear from folks across Toronto, that, ultimately wayfinding is disjointed. And throughout these processes of upgrade, still don't meet the needs of disabled communities. Further, I have to say from personal experience in, some of the stations like at Eglinton, I'm quite concerned about the disjuncture in terms of wayfinding between some of the newer sections that are going to be put in place with Line 5 when it opens, and existing areas. So I think that having greater consistency across the system, in addition to the areas that we've are identified in your reporting where those expenditures have come into place, is really important. Further, we're certainly concerned, and we've made this clear to other transit authorities as well, about the limits of accessibility with Presto. It's very clear from some of our experiences in Toronto and elsewhere that members of our community are still having difficulties using the access features of Presto. Now, obviously, this is a Metrolinx issue, but that certainly needs to be further explored, in the Toronto context. Something that we've heard across jurisdictions, in particular, is that blind, low vision, and folks with, various experiences of mobility have issues actually utilizing Presto, particularly in the card form. So I think that, while we've had conversations with Metrolinx, and I'm sure, you have as well, about some of those issues in the past, those still remain to be the case. I will say, additionally, something that's very clear in your reporting is, a broad discussion of AODA compliance. I will remind the TTC board that AODA compliance was required as of January.
Brad, I'm going to ask you to please wrap up. You're over time.
Okay, thank you. I just want to quickly state to that point that AODA compliance was required in January, not September, and we certainly need further developments beyond the current transit standard that hopefully folks of the TTC board would be willing to implement on a local level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brad. Are there any questions for the deputant? Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you, Brad. Next, we have Adam Roy Cahoon. Adam, please go ahead.
Hey, thank you, everybody, for letting me speak. The two issues I am going to be speaking on, and again, they're related to customer service and customer support. The first is, I know it's only a few lines in a little report, but the fact that the TTC is looking at using AI to replace some of the customer service at Wheel-Trans is very scary for somebody like me, as the other W'tons have talked about. It is very concerning, and as somebody with a vocal difference and slightly altered speech, I am very scared at how that could work for me. Sure, there are some ways technology works, and AI can be helpful, but it could be very scary booking a ride and not knowing if you've done it right, and not knowing if you can get through to customer service to actually fix the problem in a timely manner. It's already a mess at the CRA, and during the spring when Canadians were signing up for the disability benefits, there were errors and glitches and no way to get through, and that's why a lot of us had our checks delayed by a few months, because there was no way to reach somebody for customer service. And that brings me to the next thing. On some of the reports and stuff, there is talk of eliminating the cash fare, and I'm asking that it be saved on Wheel-Trans, and because of the concern of Presto. Again, it's not easy for us as individuals with disabilities to go to a station and just do our Presto business. And right now, Presto has given Shoppers Drug Mart a monopoly, and they've given up on customer service. Most of you, if you go to a Shoppers Drug Mart, you realize that they want everyone to use the self-checkout machine, and half the time, I've heard people ask for the Presto machine, or I've asked myself. I've been told, oh, go to a subway station, or go down to Union Station. Our Presto terminal isn't working right at the moment. And I was told several years ago that yes, you would not be allowed to add Presto terminals in retail businesses, but the Toronto Public Library or Toronto Community Centers or other civic infrastructure could be set up to help individuals with Presto needs, and they have more of a customer service capacity to help us than Shoppers Drug Mart. And so I believe if you really want to make it easy for all Torontonians to actually move on to using Presto for their fare payment, then all options that can legally be done need to be looked at to have a customer service support system for us. So on both topics, I think there needs to be more discussion on those issues rather than just thinking we can just keep pushing forward with those plans, because they may look okay on paper to most of you, but they have major accessibility issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Are there any questions of staff? Yes.
Sorry, one quick one. Just on, given that, at least to my mind, the elevators and subways is absolutely key. And on one of the pages, sorry, I'll tell you the page right at the top of the report, we've spent almost 800 million and we have 400 million more to go. I thought we were at the end of that program, that we had 1 or 2 stations to go and that we were in the, towards the end of a bunch of them. How close are we to finishing? I know you have to reevaluate, that's phase 4, but.
Yeah, through the chair, so we are at 58 of 70 stations currently accessible. We have a schedule in the major projects update, quite detailed, that indicates the future in-service dates for the elevators. We anticipate, with the exception of Old Mill, which will be done in 2028, the remaining 11 stations will be complete in 2026. With regards to cost, it is fair to say that the stations that are currently in construction are last in the program because they're the most complicated, and therefore price per station certainly higher than the ones that we did earlier in the program a number of years ago. So that is likely contributing to what you see in terms of a more back-end loaded cost.
Okay, so we have 58 now. 2026 we'll have next year we'll have.
By end of 2026, we will have 69.
69.
And just Old Mill is sticking out the back end of that for completion in 2028.
Is there anything to advance the Old Mill so that we can at least say we've done it all?
So
2028 seems a long time.
Yes, through the chair, Old Mill was a complicated station with respect to constructability and property acquisition in that location, and it just commenced construction earlier this year. So we are, it is the last one to do. The time scale of 3 years of construction is on par with a station of this complexity. We can certainly look at opportunities to advance, but we're very early in the construction of that particular station.
Okay, thank you. Thank you and best wishes with that. We want to see it done, of course. That's it.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other questions? Commissioner Osborne?
One quick one. I note that in the report, it says that we are going fully electric on the fleet, and we've had some pullback on that on the conventional system, and I'm wondering, just given we haven't even had the trial yet, I don't think, of the e-buses, that where we sit on this, just with range questions and the lack of any data from the trial that we're doing. That sounded, the way I read it anyway, sounded fairly definitive, and I'm just curious where we are.
Through the chair, I might have to ask cameras to jump in if this is on the Wheel-Trans fleet, but basically the pilot is about to start next year, and it's a limited number of buses that will be coming to our shop, and so far what we see is there's no issues with the range. It operates differently than the conventional service. They're not always out there. They run shorter trips, they run slower speeds, so some of the regen benefits of e-bus is going to be in play there. So right now we don't have a whole lot of concerns with that. So it looks promising, and as I said, it's going to start next year, and it's a small fleet. So,
thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Osborne. Any other speakers? No? Or sorry, questions? Anyone to speak on the item? No? Okay. I will move the, can I have a motion to adopt the recommendations? Commissioner Malik, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. We are now on item 6, financial and major projects update for the period ended June 28th, 2025, and we will begin with questions. Commissioner Jagdale, you held the item.
Thank you, Chair Myers. We discussed some of these details at the Strategic Planning Committee last week, and it would be great to just have staff first articulate what specific levers we're hoping to pull over the next few quarters to help us close this net gap without degrading service. And you know, what do we think the quantified upside and downside of each of those levers are going to be? And this is obviously in relation to this deficit that we're experiencing.
So through the chair, thank you for the question. We are, have you noticed, the 36.5 million we're seeing right now. We are continuing to monitor the impacts. We have new investments that are coming into play in the last quarter. We have our compliance. We're focusing on that to stop some of the exits there. We are looking at, you know, the return back to the office. We are still monitoring that. We're not sure where the uptick is on that. And we're also looking at expenditure management, trying to reduce our expenses to offset the shortfall in our revenue. So we have some things, levers there to help us manage that.
In the document, there's a footnote. There's actually two footnotes that call out what I assume to be a new accounting standard that we're going to be taking advantage of, PS 3400. Is that
That's correct,
accurate?
yes.
Can we get some color on that?
So with, for example, through the chair again, third-party recoveries, what we used to do is what we generated in expenses, we would offset with revenues. Based on the new standard, you need to gross up your revenue and gross up your expenditures to give you a net zero. What we used to do in the past is net those numbers together. Therefore, you would not see the gross up in the revenue or the expenses explicitly in the areas that they wanted to see.
And this requires council approval?
Yes.
What happens if they say no?
I don't think we have an option on that.
Overtime, looks like it's running materially higher year over year because of weather and vacancies, somewhere around 32%. What's the hiring plan? What are we hoping to do there? What's the time to fill? When do we think this will normalize?
Through the chair again, our vacancies has considerably improved. We are taking actions in filling those roles. Unfortunately, there are roles that are very hard to fill, which are the skilled trades, the electricians, technicians. Those are the difficult roles under Fort's shop that we're trying to fill, but we are bringing that ratio down considerably from, I think the vacancies at one point was 8%. We're now trending down to 5.8%.
Okay. The Bloor-Young capacity improvements, maybe I didn't read this correctly, but can you walk us through why it's, what is it, $17 million higher than what it should be?
I'll pass that on to Stephanie, yeah.
Yeah, through the chair. So just in this fiscal year, just for clarification, the total project budget has not shifted, it's not changed. It's 1.514 billion is the total project budget at the moment. What has shifted forward is the cash flow. So we're in the development phase right now, and the development phase costs in terms of design and progressing value engineering has advanced faster than we anticipated. And so it's just a pull forward cash flow without any change to the bottom line of the project budget.
Got it. Okay, so this is not net new. It's just we're pulling cash flow from a stage that's moving faster than we expected.
Correct.
Which is a good thing.
On the capital side, it usually is, yeah.
Okay, cool. No other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jagdale. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. I just had a couple quick questions. Can you please give an update on the status of St. Patrick and Queen's Park stations?
Through the chair, those works are progressing quite well. We've been working very closely with Fort's team to gain some additional closures and piggyback on existing closures that are planned through this year and into early 2026. At this point in time, we anticipate substantial completion of that project in mid-2026.
So next year, both projects?
Correct.
Okay.
Through the chair, correct.
Okay. And I know it's in the report, but I'm just wondering if you could just give a verbal update on progress on the Scarborough Busway.
Through the chair, we will be providing a detailed update to the board in October. But in advance of that, construction has started in late June, and the work's progressing well with preparatory works and fiber relocations. We are working on an acceleration plan, and we anticipate to come back with a favorable update in October for revenue service towards the end of 2026.
So it's possible the line might be open by 2026 instead of 2027?
Through the chair, yes, we are continuing to work with our contractor to finalize those plans. Those plans are in discussion at the moment.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions? No, any speakers? No, okay. I will just move this item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. We are now on item 8, procurement authorization, supply of uniforms and work clothing, and we will begin with questions. Vice Chair, you held this item.
Yes, who am I speaking with? Well, okay, I'll just throw out the question then. Is it time for the TTC, given it's a fixed cost, so it's not like a brand new idea out there, but is it time for us to update our uniforms? Perhaps change them? Some might say that they need updating. I'm putting that kindly.
That's on the list. That's on the list. My list.
As a to-do or to throw in the garbage or a great idea and maybe we'll do it one of these years? Which list is it on?
It's on my list of things to review.
Okay, and we'd be looking for a report and a process and new TTC, new look, upgraded. Okay, I'll take that obscure answer positively. Thank you. Okay, I'll let it go, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
We need a new uniform. I think we do need some new uniforms. To speak to it, 5 seconds. I do think we need to look at the uniforms. Some are more attractive than others, but I think we got to be brought into the 21st century with a little, as a previous chair used to say, a little bit of pizzazz.
Pizzazz. You're going to bring back the pizzazz committee?
No.
Okay. Any other speakers on this item? Question, sorry.
Just a short question, just trying to minimize workload for the staff. So if this, I know this exceeds the authority level for approval, but if it's already in the budget and the budget had been approved, is this something that needs to come to the board?
So, Mr. Chair, if I can, this is before the board because this is a single source. So it's not a matter of the magnitude of the approval, it's because it's a single source. That's why it's here before the board.
Thank you. Any other questions? I just have a really quick one. The uniforms, are we working with Canadian suppliers?
So the question there is yes. We have Canadian suppliers on board currently as vendors, and we also have a roster of pre-qualified vendors for them that are Canadian and have Canadian presence.
And how many of them are located in the GTA?
At least 2 of them are, but there is a requirement in this tender for them all to have a GTA presence. Uniforms are very personal, of course, and require fitting and adjustment and those sorts of things. So there has to be local presence in multiple locations wherever we can.
Great, thank you very much. Any other questions? Any speakers? No. I will move a motion. I will move the item. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Next, we are on item 10, schedule of meetings, and we will begin with questions. Vice Chair Mahavik, you held the item.
Yes, so what I'm really looking at the 1A, the board meetings, and I'm not sure if others have looked at that very closely, but at the end of the day, and yes, I understand it's an election year, and that's probably why July to December, that is a long period. Historically, I think we've had a meeting in September, so that it'd be a little closer. And I'm wondering, and there's also not a meeting in May. So I'm wondering what the thought process is here. To have 5 meetings, TTC meetings in a year, to me, it feels a bit not taking our oversight function. it minimizes our oversight function, it seems to me. That's my, so I'm putting that in the form of a question.
Okay, through the chair, so there are 5 meetings scheduled in 2026 or proposed to be scheduled. We haven't traditionally scheduled meetings after nomination day. Nomination day is August 21st. So that's why you see that break between July and December of 2026. With respect to the structure, the report does speak to this at a high level. We are monitoring this structure, again, if it is approved, to determine if this is successful. The rationale for reducing board meetings is supported by the delegated authority, the authorization for expenditures and other commitments, the approval of delegated authority under that policy. So we will anticipate less items coming forward to board. However, that said, there are also committee meetings scheduled on off-board months, which would be expected to take some of the burden off board, but also ensure that we continue to maintain transparency and accountability to the public and the board.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dragdale?
Can we start our meetings at 9?
Certainly, if that's the will of the board.
9?
I'm with 9:30.
Oh my God. Okay. Hire a motion. Oh my God, I don't want to make a motion. Can we?
You're still on, are you on speakers?
No, we've gone to questions. Speakers?
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, only to say I do think it's our responsibility to have oversight, of course, over the TTC. I understand the lack of board meetings during the election period, but I do think that they're a bit scant between January 1st and July 22nd. And I'm not moving a motion, but I'm suggesting to the chair that maybe he kind of think that at the end of the day, this is you're the chair of this committee, and maybe you want to look at that, and we can of course add another meeting or two as you see appropriate. But it's something that I think the chair might want to review. So I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other speakers? Commissioner Sachs?
I do think it would be fine to start at 9:30, the way the council meetings do. I think the number of meetings is fine. We do have the committee meetings, and it's going to be an absolutely insane year, I think, for council members. We have other duties. And there will be lots and lots of things we're trying to get done before the cutoff day. So I think the schedule is fine. I agree we should start at 9:30 instead of 10, like everything else.
Okay. Anybody else? Commissioner Kim?
I'm of the opinion that just 2 audit and risk management committee meetings might not be enough. That's just my opinion. That maybe 1 more, just given everything that goes on, you know, the reputation of the organization. A lot of things can happen, and just from a governance and oversight perspective. And March and June, there's 3 months in between, but then there's nothing for the rest of the year.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Kim. Any other speakers? No? Okay, so I'll just be briefly just speaking with the clerk. We're going to take all of this feedback. We will hopefully, it's the will of the board to approve the schedule of meetings today, but we can take the feedback and see if there's anything that can be done to improve the process. So there might be a supplementary report coming forward sometime this year on just some of the feedback the board has given us. Okay, if there are no other speakers, all those in favor, I'll move the motion. Opposed? Carried. Great. Our final item is item 11, feasibility study of delivering a centralized, on-demand, accessible taxi cab dispatch service through the existing Wheel-Trans service. And we have a speaker on this item, Glenn DeBearmaker. Glenn, go ahead, you are online.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just seeing if I can get my settings to let my camera get turned on. And that may not be possible. So I think if you can hear me, I'll just
we can hear you.
Speak. Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Commission. I'm here today on behalf of Co-op Cabs. We are a true cooperative. Our members have joined Co-op Cabs many, many years ago to make sure that all the drivers band together, work together to maximize the welfare of those 900 members that we have driving their cabs. We just want to say that we strongly support and appreciate the motion being put forward by Chair Myers and Commissioner Sachs to ask staff to investigate this service, and I'll get to why we think it's such a great idea in just a minute. The one request we are asking you to consider is maybe requesting staff to report back as soon as possible or by the end of 2025. The reason we say this is Mayor Olivia Chow in December 2024, as part of a larger review of the vehicle for hire industry, asked city staff to investigate this matter. It's now 9 months later. We hope that within a year, the city and the TTC can work together to get something in place to provide a service that the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act actually requires the city to do. The city's not there quite yet. We think it's an amazing initiative that the city's doing. We fully support it. We're just asking and encouraging people to support the motion and to see if this can be done as quickly as possible. Certainly, when the city started to broadcast that it was looking at making sure that people with disabilities actually have accessible services in the vehicle for hire industry, we supported it, of course, and we said, well, why doesn't the city use the Wheel-Trans service? The wheel has already been invented. The wheel is working just fine. The Wheel-Trans service gets sort of gold star ratings from people within the disability community. And so you've already got a service that is proven to serve thousands of users and would save the city of Toronto millions of dollars, or at least $1 million a year after year after year. So we think this is an opportunity to provide an increased level of service to the disabled community at no cost to this TTC, and would actually save the City of Toronto money as well, because they would use you as a service provider as opposed to a third-party company that would have to reinvent the wheel. As you know, you have a pool of hundreds of trained licensed drivers who have passed vulnerable sector screenings. We don't know why the City of Toronto would want to do that on its own and just reinvent that entire thing and then find its own pool of hundreds of drivers who would need training, licensing, and having their vulnerable sector checks. To be an accessibility driver, you do need a level of knowledge, of understanding, of empathy, of patience, of diplomacy, and a sense of humor. So this is not the wheelchair service, and the accessibility service is a specialized service. It's not just for any old person who walks off the street. It takes a special person to provide this level of door-to-door, literally hand-to-door service. And we think the TTC is already doing an excellent job at it. We don't think it needs to be reinvented. You, as the TTC, have already got in place hundreds of inspected vehicles, safe vehicles, fully equipped vehicles, and geographically distributed vehicles. So today, on a Wednesday afternoon, right now, your computer has a map of where every single vehicle in your system is, and if somebody out in Scarborough needed a ride from the disabled community, from the Scarborough Town Centre Shopping Mall, your computer network already has in place the hot map that shows who the closest driver is, independent of whatever company it is. I think we also want to emphasize the quality of the service that the TTC already provides. Our company, there's other companies, but I'll just speak on behalf of our company. Our company this year has received a service score of 94%. I wish in my entire life I would score 94% on my exams, but I don't think I ever did. But you can see the level of service. Finally, of course, you can offer the city economies of scale that nobody else can. So that's why, I guess, in closing, we're thanking Chair Myers and Commissioner Sachs for bringing this motion forward. We hope the Commission will support it, and we hope the Commission can give direction to do this as quickly as possible. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and my apologies for my computer hiccups on my screen.
No worries. Thank you very much, Glenn. That concludes. Does anyone have any questions for him? Commissioner Osborne?
Yes, I like this initiative. I just am curious. This sounds like a very significant undertaking. This
questions for Glenn or staff?
Oh, no, for staff, sorry.
Okay, so, sorry, great. No questions for Glenn? Okay, thank you. Commissioner Osborne.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm just wondering, this sounds like something we're not staffed up for. Is the city paying for this, this study?
Through the chair. So Commissioner, I'm here with two city staff members from the MLS, Joanna and Tobias, and they can expand on this. I can tell you that the time it's taking Wheel-Trans to do this feasibility study will be done outside of any regular work that the TTC completes. It will in no way affect the operation of Wheel-Trans. In terms of funding this overall, I'll just pass it over to Joanna to speak to that.
Thank you for the question. So depending on the outcome of this feasibility study, any of the costs would be covered by our accessibility fund, which is funded by industry currently. So there'd be no cost to the taxpayer, no cost to the TTC. Yeah.
You're done? Okay. Vice Chairman Havoc?
Yes, I'm still at the square one here, trying to understand this a little bit better. So basically, right now, if I need a Wheel-Trans vehicle, I can call Wheel-Trans or do it online. But I can also call co-op cabs or the other multiple vehicles for hire services. What this does, and I would have to call co-op cabs. I'd have to call, I don't know, Beck Taxi, I guess, and all the various other services, or an Uber or whatever. What this does, it says, okay, let's merge the call center. And that's the only thing that it's asking, and it would be at the expense of each of the operating companies? Is that what we're talking about here?
So through the chair, you got part of that right. That exactly the first part is correct. Now, we're not intending, the feasibility study is not to look at merging, but to have a separate dispatching center at Wheel-Trans that handles all of those calls, as you said, that aren't part of a Wheel-Trans registration. So a customer that's not registered with Wheel-Trans requires an accessible vehicle in the city instead of having to call, several different numbers. So one central dispatching number that they call, a separate center within Wheel-Trans dispatching would then dispatch an accessible vehicle separate from any Wheel-Trans contract.
I see. And this service would be run by TTC/Wheel-Trans. We wouldn't privatize it.
This is exactly what we'd like to explore. So we don't have answers right yet. We're looking for the, we'd like to discuss this with TTC Wheel-Trans, but just to clarify, so on-demand accessible service, right now, as you said, you have to call multiple different numbers. We are looking for efficiencies and using the back-end system that Wheel-Trans already has in place, and to see if that is the most efficient way to set up a centralized dispatch. But they would be two separate systems. So Wheel-Trans would operate as is, and we would use them to, potentially to help book rides for accessible vehicle for hire on-demand service, so that you'd pay the full fare as people do already. It just would be easier for customers.
I see. So it would be one number though for Wheel-Trans and for private sector?
We don't, yeah, this is something we'd need to figure out.
Oh, I see.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that helpful information.
Thank you. Any other questions on the item? Any speakers? You want to speak?
It does sound great, but, you know, I'll just say my bias, like, if this is a service we're providing for the public good, to rationalize in that, you know, maybe this is my, certainly my thought is that, you know, we should offer it as TTC and charge the private sector, that we shouldn't farm this out to a third party. That's my bias in this conversation, just to put it up front.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other speakers? No, seeing no further speakers, I will move the report recommendations. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Great. Shortest meeting ever. That concludes the business of this meeting. Can I please have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Commissioner Matlow. All those in favor? Carried. We are adjourned.